morning, everyone. Good morning. We think it's just about 10 o'clock in Boston. That's what all of our iPhones tell us. Welcome to our virtual open house, a whole week, where your host, who you can't see right now, he's behind the camera, Rob O'Dwyer, will be walking you through our full-time programs. You will be meeting amazing people. You'll be seeing skills and projects and incredible shops. And the nice thing about the week is the Zoom link that you have now will be the one that you can use all week. So it means you can just dip in and out of programs as the week goes along. So even if you think you know that you're interested in, say, jewelry making or violin making, I really encourage you to drop into bookbinding or preservation carpentry or cabinet and furniture, because they're just incredible places to see. It's great that we can give access in this kind of virtual way, so that no matter whether you're our neighbor in Boston, or you're someone on the West Coast, or somewhere else on the East Coast, or someone in another country, you can visit with us and you can see the place. So join throughout the week. It'll be really exciting, lots of conversation, lots of interesting stories, and Rob is a very gracious host, so I know that he'll show you so much. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob and his team. They're going to take you into one of our piano programs, and I wish you a great week. I'll see you later on. Thanks for being here. Have fun.
Sarah, thank you very much. All right, here we go. Hi, Will. Hi, Emily. How are you? Long time no see.
Yeah, been a while. Welcome to the piano department. I'm Emily. I'm full-time faculty here in basic piano. And this is Will Roper. He's our teaching assistant in basic piano. Down here we teach field repairs, on-site service, and in a little while you'll get to go upstairs and see kind of the bigger, let's take it all apart, put it back together kind of stuff. But I think I'll take you guys through this way to start. Take a look around. So here we have a few soundproof tuning modules. We only have 4 of these, despite having, let's see, we've got 17 students this year. So we don't actually want perfect sound isolation in our practice spaces. While that's really nice while you're tuning, it's not what you're going to get out there in the real world. And so we try to kind of get students used to having to filter all of that out while they're here, so that when they get to the practice room and they've got a tuba on one side and a soprano on the other, that they can do it.
Great.
So through here is our little workshop area, and you know, as I said before, we mostly teach on-site service in this portion of the piano department, but sometimes we just need a little more space to work. And so you can see we have old keyboards, old actions, and these are just old piano parts that technicians in the area bring to us as pianos reach the end of their life, or as they replace parts on pianos. They send them here to us so that our students can practice in a really low consequences situation. So some people try to learn piano technology through apprenticeships, for instance, and the trouble with that is, one of the troubles with that can be that you're working on an instrument that belongs to somebody. And so if you break something, you've got a problem, right? Whereas here, you've got plenty of leeway to make all the different mistakes, figure out how to do it right, how to get it right, before you have the higher stakes situation of doing it on a piano that somebody owns and loves. We also have over here in our shop a spot to practice stringing on. You'll hear more from Ryan in a little bit. We have a collection of electronic tuning devices. We teach aural piano tuning here. We teach tuning by ear. So you start with a tuning fork and take everything relative from there. But the ETDs are a really powerful teaching tool. And so we rely on those a lot to sort of help us evaluate our work. But we do ultimately, all of our students pass all of their tuning exams completely by ear. And if we come down here, we'll see more of our tuning practice rooms. We've got a whole hallway down this way, and there's a whole other hallway over there. We've got Wes and Amin in here, and you can see that we've got a whole variety of pianos that we stock. So we've got grands, we've got uprights, we've got big ones, we've got little ones, old ones, new ones, restored ones. We try to have a really good mixture of what students might encounter out in the field so that they're prepared for all of the different variety of designs and approaches and situations. There's some things that, you know, we can't have everything here, but we try to have enough that they're walking into a new situation with a lot of information to draw on. And you can hear the sweet sounds of tuning, the soundtrack of our life as we go along. Let's head back out this way. And I'm going to take you in to meet some of our students.
Oh, that's great.
So let's see. Hello.
Hello. As Emily mentioned before, my name is Will Roper. I'm the teaching assistant here in Basic Piano Technology. And I'm going to turn it over to some of our students to talk about regulation and repairs and tuning and the things that we teach down here in the name of field service. So, without further ado, here's Gino and Brittany to talk about tuning.
Hi, so I'm Gino. First, I would like to start off saying what's really nice about being in this school is a lot of times out in the field we experience different pianos, and each piano has its own, I like to call it personality, so you have to deal with them. So what's nice about being in this school is we have different pianos to work with, so we learn how to tune different pianos. And here we have a Steinway, Mason and Hamlin, and another Mason and Hamlin. Behind you is a quiet upright, and in this back room we have another upright. So it's really nice for us students to really learn how to tune different instruments and get the feel for them. So I would like to show you a piano for those online. So I'll show you this Mason and Hamlin. You can see this is a grand piano that we have. We have all the keys in the front, our floorboard, our cabinet, or rim that we like to say. Inside we have the tuning pins, the strings, the dampers, the plates, and soundboard. A lot of people, we like to show this because it's really cool. The soundboard is really neat because without it, the instrument wouldn't really come alive. So for a demo real quick, we have this little trinkets right here that's going to play Waltz of the Flowers because Christmas. So Brittany, if you'd like to show us.
Yeah. How well can everyone hear this at home right now? Probably not super well. To give you an idea of what the power of the soundboard can do,
Wow.
Isn't that neat?
so that is what the soundboard, which is this piece of wood that you can see exposed right here, is doing for the strings. When the hammers come up and strike them, we get the sound of the piano that we all know and love.
And what we have to do as technicians is go through and make sure the strings sound good with each other. So we go in with our tuning hammers, as you saw from what I like to call Oliver's wand shop from Harry Potter, if you know. We get those different hammers that we like to feel, and the point of that is to go into the tuning pins and put them in a place where the piano sounds harmonious with each other. But that takes a lot of effort. So Brittany, I would like you to show them that thing over there.
So we're going to go over to the Gigantorama. This is made, Emily, who made this? Was it?
Lewis made this, who you guys will meet when you go upstairs to the advanced program.
So a second-year instructor made this, and it's very helpful to us students when we first start learning about what we're doing in terms of tuning. So here we have some basic components of one piano string. Right here, this portion is the tuning pin. This is what we manipulate as tuners with our levers. It's able to move, and this will change the pitch of the note that we are tuning. We actually have a tuning pin right here in real life if you'd like to see one. So some of the things that happen here on this Gigantorama, we can see this portion of the string right here. This is what we call the speaking length. So a hammer will come up and strike right here, and then this portion from this shiny point that we call the A graph, So that is this pin right here. It's a bridge pin. This portion is actually what makes sound. So we call that the speaking length. And this is the portion that we want to tune. But we can see that there are some points that we have to overcome in order to get this portion of the string tuned. One of the things that we run into as tuners is when we pull here, the first thing we're pulling over is this bit of felt that's designed to mute any unwanted sound right here. The next thing we're pulling over is this A graph right here. And sometimes there's friction. So this is called a friction point, and it gets stuck here, so you can be pulling here, but you don't hear anything here in the speaking length. So one of the things that we're trying to do constantly as good tuners is make sure that this entire string and all of the points that it runs through from beginning to end, all of the tension is equalized. And in a moment, I'm going to pass this back over to Gino so he can give you a real-life demonstration of what that will sound like and some of the ways that we do that.
That's great.
You ready? All right, cool. So over here, I have a piano that I'll give an example with. I'm going to grab my tuning hammer. Thank you. So like Brittany said, is the goal of us is to make sure that we're not only turning the pin correctly, but we're also pulling the string across all of the tension points to where it equalizes. So what that sounds like is I have here an F that I'll be playing. Depending on which way you push the lever will change the pitch. So for you music inclined people, if I turn left in this position, my pitch has gone flat or has lowered in Hertz realm of physics. If I pull towards the right, I will pull it sharp, and it now has risen in pitch class and in Hertz. The second thing that we have to focus on, which is one of the things I love that we focused on right away, is tuning unisons. Unisons is like the hardest thing to do because you're making, if you haven't noticed already, in the piano, sometimes there's 3 strings per 1 note. And you have to make all of them agree with each other so that way they sing harmoniously without any weird noise in the background. So we have this F here that I just moved, but if I pulled a mute out that hasn't been tuned to it, well, we'll try another one. LOL. There we go, that's a good one. So, I guess the other one was really nice. And so we have this really ugly, noisy sound, and the goal is to make that sound as clean as possible so that our client, who we like to refer to as Mrs. Jones, doesn't complain about our piano. So that's made the pitch worse, so let's pull her up. And now we have a really nice, clean, long sound, which is what we're going. And you've probably noticed, oh, he was playing it and he hit it really hard. That is what we call our, I lost the word for it. Test blow, there we go. The test blow is to help equalize the tension. As we pulled the string through all the points of friction, the test blow allowed the whole thing to jump and then equalize. And now that I've gotten everything nice and even and nice sound, we have a nice unison. Oh, kind of going out. There we go. So that's how we tune unisons. The next thing I'll show you is actually in the piano behind us on the Steinway. Because we are an oral program, we tune instruments by ear, which is really nice because it gives us kind of that old school feel of how to tune the piano. Before you came in, we went ahead and tuned this temperament pretty nice and well with our fists sounding nice. And our fourths with just a bit of roll. What's nice about that is as we play thirds for our musicians watching, the color, which we like to refer to as the beats, will slowly increase. And vice versa, if you play down, they'll slowly decrease. And we have a nice
One of the questions that I get a lot in the field is, oh, you tune pianos, you must have a really good ear, you must have perfect pitch. And for the most part, that can actually be a hindrance to a lot of people. Most of what we're doing is we're listening to the kind of interference that Gino's talking about, and we tune it out, or we choose where we want things to sound at their best in situations where you can't make everything happy. But it's almost like making all of the annoying things go away and not setting this to an exact frequency in each pitch. So.
Yeah, so like Will said, we're wanting to make the piano agree within itself and not sound ugly. The worst thing to do is to go to a concert, to go to a piano, and you're like, man, I want to play for my family, and you sit down and it just doesn't sound good. So that's what we as tuners go in to do, is make sure that you're comfortable on the piano. The piano sounds great and the audience feels it. So the next thing we're going to do is tune an octave, which I'll present to you. We have an octave that's somewhat noisy. She's moving around a bit. So what I'm going to do is, like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to manipulate the tuning pin. We're pushing it flat or sharp to change how that relationship refers to one another. The goal is to make sure it's nice and clean, and then it lines up pretty well. So. So what you heard was a long, before I moved it, you heard a oh, 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 but now I've made it to where it's just a nice, and I can do checks to make sure if I put it right. So what I'm listening for is this sound way up there, in the realm of partials, and I'm listening to see if those match with each other. And then I can agree, yes, they do. Good octave. So then I move on to the next one. So that one's pretty ugly. So I'm listening in the spectrum of partials above my head. I think I'm pretty close, so I'm going to try my test to see where I'm at. And I'm listening for this note up here. It's pretty close. And I'd move on all the way through. Going up is the same way. Except I change as to where I'm listening. This time, instead of listening for the fifth way above, I'm just going to listen to the octave above. So I have a clean sound, so I'm going to test it. Listening again up for up here. She's a little bit faster. There's the similar. And then I check if I want to. The fifth sounds real nice, elongated. And there's a slight roll in the fourth, a little too much.
That's great.
Right,
tuning an octave.
Thank you.
This is a lot of sort of music theory thrown at you for anyone at home who's not as familiar. But we teach a lot of this stuff in-house. We don't assume or expect a lot of piano knowledge going in. Sometimes the first class is just, here are the names of the notes. Here's the white keys, here's the black keys, this is middle C. And it goes all the way up to, we've been in class exactly 3 months now. And it gets into this kind of stuff right off the bat. And we make it accessible to people who haven't had, careers in music, and we try to make it accessible to people who have. We try to meet everyone in the middle and get everyone on the same page for how we talk about things versus how musicians talk about things. And all of this is just the tippy tip of the iceberg. It goes deep, and we talk about a lot of that and all of the really cool kind of quirks that make pianos sound like pianos. So if any of this is of interest to you, you want to know why we make the fourth sound the way that we do, why we have to pick different partials when we're tuning our octaves, come on down. I'd be happy to explain it to you, and I'd be happy to have some new faces in the seats next year. So I think at this point, unless...
I just want to mention, when I walked into this program 3 months ago, all of that would have been witchcraft to me. And I think one of the things that is really beautifully done here is the way that we break things down and the amount of time that we get to put into this. You get practical application time for so much of your day, and you're here doing this 7.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. So if you looked at that and you were like, oh my gosh, I could never do that, you absolutely could. All of us walk out of here being able to do that, and that's one of the things that's really beautiful about this program and the way that it's set up.
And to add to that, it's nice because they have this type of teaching that's fundamental. You start with a few tools, and with those few tools, you recognize them, you feel them, whether it be how to approach the keys, how to approach the strings. And little by little, you start progressing and adding more and more tools to your belt so that way you have better control over the instrument and better control over your tuning, so you feel more confident as you progress through this program.
We're going to go visit the shop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to talk a little bit about the kind of tools that we use here. The most important of all is the tuning lever, and then a few basic repairs that we do out in the field. So I'm going to hand it off now to Nathan. Nathan, you ready to go?
Sure.
Hey, Nathan.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
As you just saw Gino tuning a little bit, you saw one of these fellows in action. These are a multitude of tuning levers. We have a number of options here. And we're encouraged to use as many as we can to kind of see which one fits us best. It's a very sort of personal decision as to what feels the best, what works the best for us, and helps to inform us as to what's going on with the tuning pin as we're tuning. Now, traditionally you have this is a traditional tuning lever, kind of where everything all started, being a very traditional craft. There isn't a whole lot of development until not that long ago, and then we start getting into more high-tech things like carbon fiber, and some people like a longer tuning lever, some people like a shorter tuning lever, but we have a number of things that have made tuning levers much more good conveyors of information to the technician, one of them being carbon fiber and titanium. It makes for a much lighter lever, and it gives us a lot more feedback whenever we're moving the pins around. And as you can also see, there are many different styles of tuning levers that also are a personal decision with the technicians. Some people, prefer something that's going to have a much larger end on it, as opposed to something that's more pear-shaped. We have things that are all wood in different types of materials and different lengths, and then very high-tech carbon fiber. And these are all very customizable as well. We have different size tips that fit on the ends. So whenever, this is just a tuning pin, it slides right over the end, and some technicians like a little bit more play, some like them to be a little bit tighter, and also depending on the size of the tuning pin, we might make a different decision as to what size tip and tuning lever we'll be using. And you can go, here's another example of a nice innovation. This is from a company that is just starting.
Is it magnetic?
It is. It uses a small magnet in the head, so you can very quickly swap out the tip on your tuning levers. So if you have a pin that maybe is kind of an oddball in a piano, you can very quickly adjust to a different one. All the way up to a very, very custom lever, which belongs to our lovely Brittany.
I was going to guess.
So one of the things that's wonderful about being a student here is all of these levers are available for us to try. And from day one, you have a tuning lever in your hand and you're out trying to turn tuning pins. And the way that you like your lever and the feel of the lever, the length of the lever, the material, all comes down to the individual and the way that you approach turning a tuning pin. There are some technicians that just love a really short lever because they feel they have more control over the tuning pin. There are some technicians that love a longer lever because they feel they have more leverage to turn over 150 pounds worth of tension on one string. And so having the opportunity to try all of these helps you make a really informed decision about what you want to invest your money in. I fell in love with a lever that we actually have up on the wall right here that is very beautiful from 88 on pitch. That's similar to the style that has the magnetic interchangeable tip. I said, I love that lever, but I want to make my own. So I actually drew this design right here, sent it to the maker, told him what I wanted the base color to be, and he made this completely customized for me. And this is something I'll have for the rest of my life.
That is cool.
So
There are a number of makers that will customize levers for the technicians as well. There's Rayburn, Levitan, Falk. This is, as Brittany said, 88 on pitch. There are manufacturers, Itoshin, Schaff. There are a number of options to choose from because the tuning levers really become an extension of the technician. Not only are we getting information back from it, so there's that portion that makes it very personal, but just the ergonomics of how we need to reach into a piano and manipulate those pins. You know, just the nature of everybody's body being different, a tuning lever really needs to be mated to the technician as well.
speaking of reaching into a piano and turning strings, we're actually going to come over to the stringing back next for a demo in stringing. Sometimes when we're tuning a piano, strings break, or strings might break from a number of different factors before we walk into a client's home. So one of the skills that we work really hard to hone here is to replace a string, and we have an old part of a piano that is no longer a real piano that we have for students to practice on. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan right here.
Hey guys, safety
Ryan.
glasses on, everyone.
Thank
Safety glasses
you.
on, everyone. If not, just stand back a little bit. This is the stringing back. We spend a lot of time here, especially towards the beginning of the year. They start us off right away because it is something that takes so much detail, so much practice. It is very difficult to get it just right. So let's say your string breaks. Oh no. Oh geez. Oh, sorry, Phil. Okay. So what are you gonna do? You have to replace it. I'm just gonna replace a string for you all today. I've already got the first one started because it takes a while to do two. So you get it. A lot of obstacles in the way when changing strings, getting new ones on there. You have to decide what size your wire is, where it goes in relation to everything here. It's not just here, it's everywhere. Let's see here. Get my tuning pin out. Get on there. Make our loops around our tuning pin. At the beginning of the year, we make about, 100 of these, just in practice for doing this. So, at the beginning, there's no time limit. Practice is key. Getting it right, getting it stable, getting everything where it's supposed to go is good. Because in the field, you want to be fast. If you're in a client's home, you might have, 5 minutes. You might have 2 minutes to replace a string. You got to get to where you need to go. You need to do tuning. You need to do regulation. You have to do all these things.
And you know, a lot of times you don't plan for a broken string. It just kind of happens. Sometimes you do, of course, but you know, we adapt. We're trained for field service. So you got to be properly trained. Got to put in the hours. You got to pinch this Beckett because it doesn't want to go in there. There we go.
As Brittany and Gino talked about in the tuning demo, we have all of these different bearing points, and stability of the tuning is key. You don't want the client to come through and play Rachmaninoff and all of a sudden all of your unisons sound really bad and pitches have dropped and you have to come back and touch up the tuning. And so this stringing is key to that. If you put a string on wrong, any kind of thing, extra space between the coils or, you know, improper setting around a bearing point can cause stability issues and make that string harder to tune and less likely to stay in tune after you've left.
Absolutely. And neat and tidy points are always a plus. So we're gonna lift up our coils here, raise them up, loosen and tighten, and go back and make sure everything's tight and snug and happy cozy.
And every single day we get the opportunity to come into the shop and practice skills like this so that we can feel comfortable and increase our speed and just the overall quality of our work. And that is usually one of the favorite parts of the day for many of us. It usually happens at the end of the day. Towards the beginning of the year, the first part of our day is classroom instruction. So we might get a demo on something like this. An instructor shows us how to do it, key points about making the repair good, and then we get to apply that later in the day along with doing some piano tuning.
Absolutely.
Anything else that you want to share with us?
I'm just finishing up. If you want to finish up the final touches with me, you got to space out even here. Seat, seat, carefully, seat, and seat, and seat. Bring it up. Now we're done.
Sounds great.
That little brass rod that Ryan was using and the stringing hook here and a
yeah.
few other things we make custom. This is made out of an old bass string because we think that using piano parts to work on pianos is poetic and frankly it's just fun, and it's a tool that most graduates will carry with them for the rest of their lives, and it's just a really cool thing that we do here.
Honestly, I've made about 10 of these so far.
So the next thing we're going to see is Isabel, who is going to demonstrate what to do when a hammer shank inside of a piano breaks. And this is one of our fun repairs that
Thank
looks
you.
really pretty at the end.
Thank you guys. I will now.
Hi, I'm Isabel. As Brittany said, I'm going to demonstrate what to do when a hammer breaks. Now, the hammer is important because it hits the strings and makes the noise. And sometimes this happens. So fortunately, I know what to do for this. You take the broken parts of your hammer and you want to dry fit them first so that you know like what you're doing and how to put it back together. So that's pretty good. It's dry fit. You're not going to just stick it back in the piano like that though. So you take wood glue. It's very important that it's wood glue unless the shank is not wood, which I don't know how you would break one that's not made out of wood. But you put the glue right here. And then you stick the other half back on. Just a second. And you need to be careful so that you don't break off any bits of wood that you needed. And then you want to kind of like eye smear the glue because I feel like it makes it stick better. And then you want to take string. Some people prefer to use a type of thread that blends in with the shank more so that it's not obvious that something broke. Some technicians prefer to use green, or eventually when I go get my own string, I'm probably gonna get hot pink just because I think it'd be funny. So what you do is you wrap it around the tail of the hammer, and you put it right like that, and you wrap it around the tail of the hammer, and then you want to wrap it around the bottom a few times so that it's solid, and then you kind of just have it. Okay, let me fix that. Can you see it? Thanks. Okay. Usually it sticks. I did not do a good job sticking it to the thread. Let me sit that down. So, where's the little thing on the spool. I found it. So you want that really tight in there so it can dangle. And then you kind of, this is way up high. You wrap it really firm around, not firm, but like tightly coiled around the bottom here of the brake. And then when you get closer to the actual brake, you want to start going a little bit wider up until you get to the top of the brake and past the brake, and then you want to go tight again. And we very much value neat and tidy here, so you just kind of wrap that around. And then you want to break the string, and you want to put that up through the loop that you've made around the tail of the hammer. Let me get that through. And then you want to take the tail off of the hammer. And then the beginning of the tail of the thread, you kind of want to pull that down through, but not so much that it goes past the tight loops that you did. Yeah. And then you can cut the strings. Oh, jeez. And then you take more wood glue, and you want to make just like a cast. This is messy work, so you're gonna have to wash your hands after this. Thankfully, wood glue is water soluble, so not after it dries, but well, sometimes a little bit. And then you wait for that to dry. Luckily, in Food Network fashion, I have a pre-prepared hammer shank that I did this morning. So it'll end up looking something like this, and then it'll just no longer broken.
And in the actual piano, this is a relatively invisible repair. So even if you do like hot pink thread, the person behind the keys is not going to be staring at that or have it be an obvious thing. It's just kind of something fun for us to be able to put our mark on that piano that we fixed it. Speaking of hammers, I'm actually going to have you join me over here for just a moment. This is an action stack. This came out of a piano, and a lot of the times when we work on pianos, we will remove the action and sometimes take this home with us to work on it in our own shops. So this is an action stack from a very old piano, and so one of the things that can happen over times when a piano is played, these hammers come up and they strike the string. The string would be right here. This was once a vertical piano, so it wouldn't be in this orientation, but my arm is the string, hammer comes up, and it strikes it. The strings, like Gino said when tuning, some of them have 3 individual strings per one note. So if you can come over here and see, felt is softer than steel, so over time, that steel is going to make grooves in those hammers. And when they get bad enough, it can actually flatten the part of the hammer that engages with the string, and it can cause all sorts of problems. For one, it doesn't sound good, and we're very invested in making these instruments sound great, but for the health of the instrument, this can cause string breakage, which, like Ryan demonstrated for us, we can fix, but we don't want to happen to begin with. So I have an example right here of some filed hammers. We can remove material from these felt hammers to get rid of these grooves and return them to as close to their original shape as possible. There go my glasses. So I'm just going to demonstrate a little bit of hammer filing for you. So this right here, I'm not sure if you can see there at home, but we have some pretty noticeable string grooves on this hammer as compared to one of these that's already been filed. It's a different color, a little bit closer to what it was when the piano was made, and it looks a lot smoother and a lot better. So we want consistency when it comes to filing these hammers because they're tapered from the treble end where we have our highest notes to the bass end where we have our lowest notes. So we want to take consistent amounts of material off of the entire stack. So I like to keep count of the strokes that I'm doing. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see I have a little felt pile. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then I'm going to do this to the other side.
Reminds me of sheep shearing.
Mm-hmm. So you can see already the outside layer is starting to look a little bit better than what we started with. And then you would just sit here and make sure that you're keeping track of the way that you're working so that you can do this to every single hammer that you come across to maintain the consistency of the hammer's shape and the amount of material that we're taking off of them. And I just like to do a little bit of smoothing at the top. Now this can take a couple passes depending on how bad the grooves in the hammer are, but that's just a little taste of what something that we'll learn to do to improve the piano sound might look like.
I don't know if it came up on the film, but we have a little felt dust going up in the air now. It's actually one of the benefits of working in masks is we're not all breathing in felt dust anymore. Thank you, Brittany. I believe if you're done here, we'll take you guys over to Wes and Amin, and we'll talk a little bit about action regulation and the sort of third leg of the stool of the curriculum here, and the other thing that we approach and talk about doing in home. So come on down to room 15.
Thanks. Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you.
Is that another custom tool?
It is not. So it's a sandpaper paddle, and you can change the sandpaper out.
Huh.
People certainly do make those custom, do all kinds of things. Some people prefer their own sandpaper strips that they've backed with tape. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Amin and Wes for some talk about action regulation.
Great. Hey, Amin. Hey, Wes.
Hey, welcome to the Action Center, as some of us would call it. So I guess you guys have seen what an action of the piano is. You've been introduced to that. So here today, Wes and I will just go a little bit over that, and we'll talk about the action on the grand piano, on the upright, and then we'll show you a little bit of a demo. We got action models on the corner. We'll talk about that. So Wes, who is also a really great pianist, will show you the action of the grand.
Yeah, the action of a grand is hidden behind all of these parts. We start by taking this off so that we don't damage it with the fall board in the front. Amin, if you could take this, going right in front of the cameras there. Then we take the fall board off in the front. Amin again. Thank you. Then we take the cheek blocks off. These can be placed to the side. Then we take the key slip off. Some of them are weighted with weights. And then you do the removal process. It's a gentle sliding motion towards you, towards the player, and out comes the engine of a piano, what we call the action. It's made up of 3 different parts. It's made up of the key, the place that the player plays. It's made up of the whipping, which is a series of levers, and then the actual hammer itself, which strikes the string. Once we have the action out, we can do many different regulations on it. We can adjust the distance that the hammer strikes the string. We can adjust the distance to where it stops. We can adjust the depth of the weight and how the key feels itself. We can also adjust how far the actual hammer is tilted, or I guess swayed. We can adjust pretty much anything to how the player feels and how the player wants their piano to feel.
Well, we can demo that with the action model behind you.
And the, I guess, replacement process is very similar. It's just a sliding motion back into the piano. And Amin will demonstrate doing the same exact maneuver on an upright piano.
So in an upright, you can see, it's a little bit slightly different action that we got here. So in order to remove that, we got a few nuts that we'll take out here. Thank you. And again, similar parts as it is in the grand piano, but so on a action of an upright. So once we remove those bolts, essentially, I don't know if you want to take a look inside here. These are all the same thing as hammers as Wes was talking about. We got the dampers, and this is essentially where these hammers hit all the strings out here as the player is playing these keys. So as you can see, this key will move that lever out there. And normally we take this out, we can put it like on a table or somewhere. This whole thing comes off. And that's when we can do a lot of regulation work and also see the status of the hammers, the dampers, and a lot more. So
That sounds all great. What's an example of a regulation step that we could do on, say, a one-note action model?
Yeah, so that will take us to the next part of this demonstration. I'll just put this on for now. So it's very important that we put these nuts on and then make sure they're nice and tight so that they don't, so that once it's on tight, then you can tell that the key is actually striking the string at a proper force and distance and all that. So we're going to move over there to take a look at the action models.
Okay.
I'll just stick around here.
Thanks, Amy.
So here we go. This is pretty much what Wes was demonstrating. Got my action tool right here. So in this model, this is like a model from like a grand piano, similar to what we saw earlier. And this is what we use to kind of study these parts, and as a homework and also as an exam thing. We'll keep practicing on these because one day you're going to be out in the field and trying to do a lot of repairs, what we call regulation of a piano. So in this model, what we've done, we've gone ahead and deregulated this piece. And one of the things that happens as the player pushes down on the key, the hammer that goes and hits the string needs to go up, hit the key, and then return. In this case, as we can see, it does not return, because if it was to hit a string and stay on, then it muffles the sound and you don't hear any sound. So this key needs to go hit the string and kind of drop, and that drop is what we call a let off. So in this case, what we're going to go use this let off button here and adjust that so that it hits the string and then comes back down. So in this case, I'll do that by reducing this let off a little bit. As you can see, it's still not good enough, so let's go off the other way. Alright. There we go. So it hits the string and then it drops. So now this amount has to be a certain amount, which we have a tool for. It's about 7/32 of an inch. So normally this is part of the regulation for a let off. So it's a little bit less than that. So it's somewhere around here. So this is part of the regulation work that we do or practice and we learn here at North Mass Street. That's one of the examples. Another example that we have here is, again, the distance between the hammer and the string. So if you play it hard, there should be a little bit of a distance, about 5/8 of an inch. In this case, this hammer's getting close to the string a little too much. So what we're gonna do is just adjust what we call a back check here by a slight amount, so that, no, it's a little too much. And normally we have a ruler, so we can measure it with a ruler. That looks about right, but again, just to be sure, we will grab a ruler and make sure we measure that. So these are the type of things that you will be learning in class, and also you practice a lot with your classmates. We deregulate a lot of these, we hand them off, especially Brittany and I have been doing a lot of that. So it's like, she's like, oh, what did you do to this thing? I can't even know. I'm like, I'm a little bit evil on that stuff, but yeah, so it's just practice, practice, practice. It'll make you perfect and this kind of thing. And from what we have heard from a lot of professionals out in the field, is like, this is what you will be doing once you graduate out of here.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you.
You're
I have
welcome.
just a few more words to say.
Yeah, please.
I think one of the things that I've really fallen in love with being in this program is that, you know, we have a collection of 17 students here and 2 instructors that we see pretty regularly, and we're all brought here by our love of these instruments. And we all have this common ground, and we spend a lot of time together, and it becomes your home away from home. And if I had met myself 3 months ago, the amount of knowledge that I've collected in this time, my old self would have thought I'm an alien. It's just incredible how much you can learn, especially when the information that you're learning is presented to you in a way that's bite-sized and has a lot of reinforcement. And it's just one of the many things that make this school so magical. And if you're interested in coming here, you definitely should, because it's an incredible opportunity.
Brittany, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And out of curiosity, will you just share with us, what was it that you were doing before you came here to North Bennett Street School?
Yeah, so I come from a bachelor's degree of arts and music. So I studied music prior to this. I have some piano playing experience, but when I got out of college, I didn't really want to pursue a master's degree or teach. And this is actually something that a lot of folks come here with this quandary. You know, what do I do next? I love the piano, but the normal paths don't quite fit me. And piano technology is a great option for those who want to continue their depth of love with the instrument, just from a very different perspective. But we have students of all different backgrounds, people who don't play piano at all, maybe people who don't know anything about music theory or almost anything about music from a technical standpoint. So no matter who you are, we teach everyone, and everyone walks out of here with the tools that you need to be successful.
Brittany, thank you so much. And thank you, Wes and Amin and Will. Wes, will you share with us what you were doing before you came to school here?
I studied piano technology for about 2 years with a bunch of different mentors back in California, where I came from. And they all decided at once, pretty much, just to say, if you want to join us, go to North Bennett and then come back. And that's essentially why I'm here. I'm here to learn and then go back and help them out with what they need to do.
That's great. Thank you, Wes. And Amin, you know it's coming. What about yourself?
Well, before coming to North Bennett Street School, I was an airline pilot for an airline in Canada, and then things got, you know, with this thing that happened a couple years ago, the pandemic. So I got laid off, and then this was a great opportunity to come and learn something else and be humbled and grounded again, and looking forward to do this on the side. And once I'm planning on going back to flying again, but I will definitely do piano technician work on the side. So really glad to be here.
That's great. Thank you, Amin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wes.